Welcome back to the After Contract Hours podcast, the show where we clock out at work to check in on the well-being of the world. In today's episode, we explore the nuances of comprehensive health education with a keen focus on emotional health. But what exactly is emotional health? More than just the absence of mental illness, emotional health encompasses our ability to navigate the ups and downs of life, to manage stress, to build meaningful relationships, and most importantly, to understand and express our own emotions in a healthy way. We dive deep into the realm of emotional health, guided by a very special guest and incredible friend of mine who generously shares her personal journey. From grappling with an identity crisis in early childhood to navigating the complexities that accompanied her into adulthood, she paints a vivid picture of resilience, growth, and self-discovery. Join us as we embark on this transformative exploration, shedding light on the importance of emotional well-being. This conversation transcends the individual experience, offering insights that resonate with anyone on a quest for authenticity and a deeper understanding of themselves. Before we dive deep into the heart of today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to convey my gratitude. Guys, thank you so much for being an integral part of this community and for joining me on this enriching journey. If you find value in what you hear today, I encourage you to share the love by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support is the heartbeat of this podcast. Additionally, if you discover that this episode may not resonate with you directly, please consider passing it along to someone who might find it beneficial. Together, we can extend the reach of valuable insights and contribute to the well-being of those around us. So today we have an amazing guest with us today. She's one of my best friends. She was in my wedding. I was in hers just last year. We navigated all of the wedding adventures together. Super fun. We've known each other for about 6 years, 6 years, and she is just someone so near and dear to my heart. So this is Sydney. I reached out to a bunch of my friends as I started this podcast, and because I just knew I wanted all of them on my podcast at some point, because I know that each of you in my life have such a powerful stories. And Sydney was one of them that I reached out to right away early on with this process, and I asked her which health category would you be confident sharing and what story do you want to put out there to help people. And after talking, it came up that I think identity crisis is a fantastic topic, and I think my high school students, middle school students, even young adult college students and above, even adults well into our 30s, 40s, like we go through this too. Mm-hmm. So I'm so excited to hear her story about this. She's got a lot of golden nuggets and just great depth to provide with us. So Sid, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick to the world.
Hello, world. Yeah, so like Courtney said, we've been friends for about 5 or 6 years now. I am 26, married to the love of my life. Shout out Ethan. I'm a dog mom of 3. Hoping to be a child mom at some point.
Amen.
Working on that. Career-wise, I am currently a sales trainer for a marketing firm in downtown St. Louis. And what else is interesting about me? I'm a diehard Swiftie. So
yes!
If any of your followers don't like Taylor Swift...
Yep. We're no longer associated. Oh my gosh. And I think I literally just texted Sydney, side note, yesterday or 2 days ago, telling her that I think I officially am on that bandwagon.
Come
also.
to the good side.
We watched her, well, he fell asleep, but I started her Reputation tour on Netflix. Today's the last day for it. I don't know if you care, but we have to watch it in full.
It's pretty good.
And then I watched her documentary again. I'm like totally on board with it. So
she's great.
This is super random too, but since you mentioned this with Swiftie, so the other day when I first started watching her Eras tour, 2 of my other girlfriends aside from you are also like diehard Swiftie fans, and I feel like last year was the first time that I learned that you were like I just never knew that about you, but you of the other 2 who are diehard Swift fans, you by far are like above that, and I'm not knocking that in a way. It's a beautiful thing.
2 Taylor Swift tattoos.
It's amazing. So I was watching this Eras tour, and I don't know, I think it was a part where she gave her hat to Kobe Bryant's daughter. Oh my God, I was weeping.
Chills.
Yes. Goosebump jar. I literally thought in that moment, it was like I was putting myself in her shoes. Like, if that were just me, and again, I wasn't even a diehard fan of Taylor's, but in this moment, I was like, inserting myself here. I swear to you, my immediate next thought was, I wouldn't deserve to be in those shoes. And if I had a ticket to be that person, I would give it to Sydney. That totally crossed my mind. I literally basked in that moment. I know, I was excited to tell you that. I did. I was crying and staring at the screen. I was like, Sydney deserves this.
I love her. I love her so much.
It was good. It was so good. So yeah, we're going to be talking about identity crisis, which may sound like a very intimidating or dramatic term to some people, and you can take it however you want, but we're going to be exploring different chapters of Sydney's life and how she navigated those waters of understanding who she was, her emotions at that time, and then how she prospered through to who she is today, which I would not be friends with her today if she wasn't the most amazing human that she is. So I'm probably going to learn some new insight from you too that I just don't know, and I'm super pumped about that also. So I think what's really important is that we start with the first chapter of your life. So, like, tell us who little Sydney was. Like, who were you growing up?
So, little Sydney, my parents were divorced. They got divorced when I was 2, I believe, very, very young. And so I grew up in, separated households, which was my normal. I had never really known anything differently. I went to Catholic school for the better part of my life. Kindergarten to sophomore year of high school, I went to Catholic school, which anyone who's ever gone to private school or Catholic school can attest that it's a very, you learn a lot, but you struggle with like that sheep mentality. Everybody is very much the same way, wears the same clothes, does the same things. And I think that's really like where my identity crisis stemmed from. But outside of, going to Catholic school, I also grew up doing sports. I also danced. I played soccer, basketball, volleyball. I ran track, cross country, and then I was a competitive dancer as well.
All the things.
All of the things.
Wow.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, which is so funny because today you are married to a PE teacher, a very athletic human being, and you always joke about how unathletic you are, but you are not. You are, like, in fact, quite the opposite.
Identity crisis.
Yes, like, you are so athletic, and it's so funny because you're always like, I'm terrible at volleyball, like, and it's like, no, you're amazing in all the sports that you did, so it's funny.
Yeah. And, like, my parents always did a really, really great job of affirming me and making me feel good about, how I was in school. They always told me I was pretty and beautiful and perfect and all of that. But I still was always just like seeking out like affirmations from other people. And I think growing up, like being surrounded by, when you go to a private school, there's a certain type of people that can afford, I guess, going to those types of schools. And I struggled with like the idea of my parents not being able to afford maybe the same things as other people's. And so that's kind of where it stemmed from, but also like, behind that, maybe these kids' parents could pay for like private lessons, or maybe they could be part of club teams, so they would perfect their skills at certain activities or sports, or maybe they had outside tutoring and so they were able to do better in school. And so I was always comparing myself to those individuals, and I tried so hard to be like that. I never struggled with like making friends. I was always friends with those people, but I still just never felt super confident and comfortable in who I was in that point in my life.
That's what was going to be my next question, was like socially, how would you define yourself? So, and obviously you have great people skills, like you have a fantastic personality, super approachable and warm. So would you say that socially, like it wasn't hard for you to make friends in that sense, but internally you were just like do I belong
Yeah.
with that group?
Yeah, always. Yeah. I mean, I've always had a lot of friends. I've always been blessed with, I shouldn't say being well liked, but being able to get along with basically everybody. I get told a lot that I am not approachable because of how my face is, but I promise I'm a super nice individual.
Yes.
And so I've never really struggled with that, but I've always struggled with like, what groups do I belong in? Where do I belong? And like, who is actually like a true friend to me, who would be around, if something crazy happens, stuff like that. Like those are always just abnormal thoughts that are like going through my mind. And that has definitely gotten better as I've grown up and matured. But like, I mean, I haven't talked to a single person I went to high school with since the day I graduated. I don't really talk to anybody I ever went to grade school with. Like, I just was never, I don't think, super, super comfortable and confident in my friend groups at that time. And I never really identified who I was until recently. So.
What's so interesting, what's coming to my mind as I hear you is, like, I didn't go to a Catholic school. I always public, so I never had the uniformity, with clothes or behaviors or those extremely high expectations, right, of how you're supposed to be as a human in a school setting. And so it's so cool for me to hear this different life experience that I have no relevance to or relatability to, because when you just think of something so seemingly simple, like to me it seems like a simple thing, to you not, maybe because you lived it, but like wearing the same outfit every day put you in this box of like, you have to be this person, and because I'm wearing this I have to act to a certain standard or behave to a certain standard. Can you elaborate a little bit more on like your experience with that, like sheep feeling, being in that box, just with the simple uniformity of being at a Catholic school? Like,
yeah. So like, yes, you do have to wear a uniform, which, means you look like everybody else. So like on the outside looking in, you wouldn't think that somebody would struggle with like identity crisis and that. But then there's the little things like the shoes, like maybe my shoes were from Payless and other people's shoes were from Nike or whatever. And then there's like how you do your hair and like the accessories that you put in your hair, and maybe you're getting away with putting a little bit of makeup on, and just like those little things that us females notice, and that like, make you at that pivotal time in your life start to question and like doubt and compare. And so, yes, I did have to wear a uniform growing up. But there was just little outliers that made me start to compare myself to other people.
Well, that type of a situation, I think in comparison to my experience, for example, like clothes and accessories, like that's a huge expression of your personality that you, at our young critical age, like you said, at that point in our life, is ever so slightly starting to develop. And we're, evolving into our identity when we're in middle school, elementary, like slowly but surely, right? But like when I think about it, like I compared myself to for sure to kids who wore whatever they wanted to in a public school setting. If my clothes were tattered compared to the Aeropostale or stuff like that. But that's such a different spin on it as an upbringing perspective of like, you had to look a certain way, which also made me think like Alex Earle. I listened to one of her recent episodes, like she went to a private school, but they could not wear makeup, and she shares how she got called out.
You can't, but
so
you got away with it.
Yeah, you could get away with it. Yeah. But like, could you wear accessories in your hair? Like, what was the level of strictness with appearance?
You could wear headbands if they were a part of like your uniform skirt color. So like, I went to 3 different schools growing up, which probably is important to this topic. But my first one, our uniforms were, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time, blue, red, and white. And so you could wear headbands that, or like ponytail holders that were the same color as your skirt. No like flashy earrings or anything like that. I actually don't even know if you were allowed to wear earrings at all. The socks had to be white or black. You couldn't explore that at all. Your shoes had to be the same color as your uniform. And then that was pretty much the same rule for both Catholic schools that I went to. I probably should have shared this, but I did actually go to a public school for 1 year. When I was in 6th grade, my parents moved from Chesterfield to St. Charles, which for those of you that don't know is like 30 minutes. So I couldn't go to the same school, and my parents decided, she's gone to Catholic school for 6 years. Let's try to send her to a public school for a year. And
were you on board with that as a kid?
I was, sweet. Yeah. I was super excited about it because one thing about like going to Catholic school is a lot of times the kids that go to public schools in the areas that are around you play on your same sports teams. And so I had known, some of the kids already, and I was excited to, potentially just get a different feel for things. However, it was middle school, which is like, as you know, one of the most like pivotal times in your, upbringing, and like identifying who you are. And I started 6th grade going to a public school, and the types of individuals that I typically would have hung out with or spent time with in a private school were not the types of individuals that I was welcomed with in a public school. They were a clique. They already had, the same people that they had been hanging out with for years, which I understand. Like, anytime there was a new kid in school, it was always the same feeling, right? But like, those are the types of individuals that I was so used to spending my time with. And so I gravitated towards like, who's going to be the nicest to me, which ended up being, interestingly enough, some of like, the goth or like emo type of kids, which in 6th grade, like, we take that a little lightly, but because they were nice, they were welcoming. They never made me feel like an outlier. But then I started to change who I was to adapt to who they were. And I remember my parents being like, who is this girl? Like,
culture shock.
We joke about it now, but my mom grounded me for like 3 months because I was dark and weird. Yeah, and like it's so funny now. Like she says it, and I'm like, yeah.
3 months?
3 months. I wasn't allowed to do anything or hang out with anybody because I was. How old are you when you're in 6th grade? Like 12?
Yeah.
I was 12, and I was just a completely different person. Like so strange. Like wearing eyeliner like down to here. Wearing those weird studded belts. Like,
do you have a picture of this? So
I made sure that they're gone.
So if I did a little exploring,
they are gone forever. I promise. Just weird
gosh.
Clothes, and it was, it was because like I didn't know who I was. Like I wanted to be a part of something, and I wanted to feel welcomed and appreciated by a certain group of people, and I did. Eventually my parents were like, this isn't working out, she's going back to private school. And so I did go to a different private school in 7th grade, and I spent 2 years at a private school in St. Charles where I had a really, really great group of friends, and I would say that experience in private school was much better than the one that I had previously. But
how so?
Yeah.
If you had to put a little bit of context to that.
I don't know if it was because I was older or if I had already kind of like experienced a culture shock myself.
Right.
But I just felt, I think, a little bit more comfortable.
That transition.
And it was just also a completely different like geographical area. It didn't feel as like uppity as the previous school.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say that people were nicer. Like everyone was nice. I just I think I felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can pinpoint exactly why, but I think it was just multiple things.
Well, and I'm sure that transition, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you went to a public school, you had that experience, and then going back to what your true normal was. Like you'd already been at a Catholic school, so just kind of adapting back to what you were comfortable with. I think that's usually, it blows my mind. It's a perspective I never thought of in regard to identity crisis, like how different a Catholic school experience versus a public school, because truly having that freedom to express yourself in so many different ways could be easier for people to be confident with themselves or not, right? Like there might be other people that have opposite views on that, but that's really interesting to me because I've never had that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, this might be a stupid question, and I'm all for those. So, because I was never a Catholic school student. So when there's all this uniformity, right, is it because the school is trying to make all of you behave like a definition of a child of God and like you all need to be the same person? Or what do you know what the reasoning for all of the uniformity truly is?
No.
Okay. Okay, no, that makes me feel better because I'm just like,
no,
like, are you
I
ever
don't.
told that as you're a student? No, you're just told to do this and...
Yeah, no. I mean, you just... There was never much of a deeper meaning behind anything. It was just always like, do this, do this, do this, do this, or else. And a lot of like, I'm religious, I believe in God and all of that, but like, there's a reason why I wouldn't step foot in a Catholic church anymore. And a lot of it is because when I was growing up, I feel like I was forced to do certain things, but was never given the reason or meaning behind why I had to do certain things. Like, you're sending a 9-year-old to confession. Like, what are they going to confess?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I left food in my room last night. Go say 10 Hail Marys and the Lord will forgive you. Like, it was just those types of things. And, you're going to Mass every Wednesday and every Friday. And it's the sit, stand, kneel, like
and at that age.
Yeah. Like, and then you have to be like an altar girl or an altar boy and, serve during the Mass and all of that. And it just, at the time I was just like, this is normal, but now that I'm grown up, I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
But like, why? Why did we have to do all of that other than being a child of God or being accepted into heaven or whatever it was? Like, I just never really understood why we needed to be a certain way or do certain things.
Right. Well, that shocks me. And like being a teacher, thinking, again, I know nothing, so whoever's listening to this, like, don't take this as factual. It's just my perspective. But like being a teacher, thinking like teachers at a Catholic school, they would relay like, hey, we want you to do this because, there should be a method to the madness. And in life, no matter what age you are, like, we're going to be more motivated to do things if we have justification for it and it makes sense to us. So I can only imagine being a young, impressionable child having to do all these regimens and just being like going through the motions. And you've shared with me before too that like that experience of your school has it challenged or tested your faith, right? Like not believing in God per se, but just like what path you want to go down as you got older because of the forcing. And I have a lot of friends who went to Catholic as a kid and they were just like, oh, no. Some people love it. Again, not knocking that, but
it's just like sense. When you learn not to get super religious, but like when you get removed from that and you learn like what faith is actually all about and like the power of God, like I just can't seem to be okay with the idea of he would want, or he, whatever, would want like that being forced upon young children without any sort of explanation. Like that doesn't seem godly. It just seems forceful.
It's like aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not hating on Catholic school. Like I wouldn't be who I was today if it wasn't for that experience. It's just I'm like, I hope that it's getting better as we're evolving as a society. It's just the experience that I had wasn't incredible.
Yeah, but I truly have heard that a lot. And again, I work in a public school and I attend a public school and we struggle just as much. Like we have a lot of our own issues. It's just really interesting, even just for me to learn how that was, because that does shape a lot of who people are when they have that experience. And that is, you didn't really have the freedom to explore things on your own at a young age. And I can't imagine how that feels. Like I've never had an identity crisis similar to that, right? So that's just really enlightening for me. So thank you for elaborating on that, because I didn't know all that about you, even as a good friend. So that was young Sydney. Let's kind of focus on high school Sydney, like growing up in your adolescence. So what was that like for you?
Yeah. So high school, I went to a private school for 1 year. And then my sophomore year of high school, it was kind of a mutual decision between me and my parents that I was going to go to a private or a public high school. Which I had a great experience in high school because I had already known a lot of the people that I went to high school with, because I went to public school with them for a year back in 6th grade. And so it was kind of a rekindling of a lot of relationships. But what's interesting is the people that I hung out with in high school were the ones that I couldn't really click with in middle school. So we all kind of evolved a little bit. But in high school, I was a 3-sport athlete. I had a great friend group. I always joke and say that I peaked in high school. I was definitely like a partier, and I went to all of the games, and I had the time of my life in high school. It was great.
Aww, that is amazing.
And I mean, not to get too deep, but like the last, I would say, year and a half of my high school, I got into a relationship that I regret now, but it's really defined like who I am.
Right.
And I think, you know, the 2.5 years that I wasn't in that relationship, I really, really, really was like happy with who I was. In the friendships that I had, and in the clothes that I wore, and the decisions that I was making, and all of that. And then I got into this relationship, and I just feel like I completely lost who I was.
Yeah.
So that's who I was in high school. Partier, 3-sport athlete, really fun time.
Yeah.
And then I ended up not going to the same, like everybody went to like a big state school, so either Mo State or Mizzou, and I knew that if I went to one of those schools, I probably wouldn't have focused on the important things in life. So I ended up making a responsible decision and not doing that. So I went to a small college locally. Yeah.
So what were, I might be getting ahead of myself, but for some reason in my brain, I thought it was high school pageants. Was that when you...
Pageants, yes.
Is that high school?
Yeah, that's a pretty big detail I forgot.
Tell us about that part.
So what year was that? It would have been my junior year. I started doing pageants, which I don't regret doing. But when I look back at that part of my life, I'm like, what were you thinking? But so my mom had gotten like an invitation in the mail for me to do Miss Missouri Teen USA, which for anyone who doesn't know, the Miss USA organization is owned by the Miss Universe organization, which is, there's like Miss Universe and Miss America. Those are like the two biggest pageant systems in the world. And so I was invited to do Miss Missouri Teen USA. I didn't really think anything big of it, but my mom took me dress shopping and got me all excited. And so I entered the pageant knowing absolutely nothing about pageants, absolutely nothing, and just how much goes into the preparation, how much everything costs, the brands to wear, the people to go to get your hair and makeup done. Like, just, I knew nothing. I was a rookie. And so that was my first pageant was in like the teen division. And I think there was roughly like 70 to 80 girls that were competing in the teen portion. And I ended up like getting top 15, which is like not that big of a deal, but kind of a big deal when it's your first year.
Yeah, and 80 people.
And so I was like, okay, you know, maybe I am going to be like really good at this. And it was also something that nobody else I knew did. And so like I couldn't compare myself to any of my friends in this because it wasn't a sport, you know, it wasn't an extracurricular activity that they could be like ahead of me on. This was something that like nobody else I knew did, and I thought, you know, I could be pretty good at this. And so I wouldn't say I got addicted, but I was like, this is my thing. Like, I'm going to do this now. And so that was my first year. And then my second year, I competed in the adult division because I was 18. So I could have done either teen or adult, but I wanted to go with adult just because, like, in the teen, you're competing with anywhere from, like, 14 to 18, which we all know is it's a different, you know, type of age range to compete with. So I just felt weird, like, competing against people that were in middle school. And so I competed in the adult division for 4 years. And it was great, you know, like I got to wear beautiful dresses. I perfected interview skills. I had a lot of great experiences, got to meet a lot of photographers, got my makeup done a lot, like just the girly things that I really, really loved.
And that you were hindered from exploring from a young age.
Yes.
Being in that box,
Yes, 1,000%. And it taught me just like how to be uncomfortable. Because I mean, like talking about it now, it's a little bizarre, but like I'm getting on stage in a bikini at 19 years old and 6-inch heels and walking in front of hundreds, if not like 1,000 people. Like, and to anybody else, that's like, ooh, that's creepy. But to me, I was like, I feel great right now.
In confidence, like the best, yeah.
It was awesome. And so I did that for, like I said, like 4 or 5 years. I stopped. Pageantry is extremely political. And so typically if you place like, you know, top 15, maybe 2 years in a row, like you're most likely going to place top 5 the following year. And then maybe you place top 5, your third, second runner up, you're probably in the chance for getting the title or the crown the following year. And so there was 1 year where I placed top 5, and that's when I was like, and I think that might have been my 3rd year. It was my 3rd year. And so I was like, I'm in it. I want to be Miss Missouri USA. Like, it's a huge deal. I would be a role model for the entire state of Missouri. I would get to go and compete at Miss USA. And then, you know, that's televised on Fox.
Okay, no worries.
And so it was just it was a really awesome opportunity for me. And then, so that was, like I said, my 3rd year. I was addicted. I spent that entire next year like preparing, getting sponsorships from people locally, getting my name out there, working on like my physique. I've always been a very like skinny person, but I wanted to be, you know, super toned. That was just never something that I cared about previously. And so I like really focused on my body image and everything. And then this was my final year. So I guess it was 4 years. I competed and I dropped back down to top 15. And I remember just being absolutely like crushed. You know, I got the most beautiful gown. I got outfits handmade for me. I was so prepared. I was so ready. I felt so good. And dropping from top 5 to top 15. Granted, there were a lot more girls that year than previous years. I don't want to like make excuses, but that was just like crushing for me. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm not going to keep, you know, going through something. It costs a lot of money. It's not healthy for me to continue to compare myself to these people. And also, I had a little bit of like imposter syndrome in pageantry, because as much as I did care about it, I also didn't let it like consume my life. And a lot of the women that I competed with, I felt like it was like their only identity. And so I almost felt as though I didn't belong because I didn't care enough about that. And so when I dropped down to top 15, I was like, yeah, this is this there's no point. I'm not going to keep, you know, killing myself over this one thing that, even if I did get the title, like, yeah, it would be great, but how is this going to serve me, you know, 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah.
So I stopped. But yeah, I started that in high school. And
that's so junior year, right? You said junior year, senior year, so 5 years total, you said? So junior, senior? 4. Okay. 4. That is a huge chunk of your, again, a very evolutionary part of your life. So I want to ask this in conjunction with that experience for you, and you don't need to go into depth with this, whatever you're comfortable with, but like, was the relationship that you were in, like the dating relationship, because you were still in that during the pageantry, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like that relationship negatively impacted your identity while you were trying to chase your goals with the pageantry? So like, and what I mean, in other words, is that you were excited about it, you were passionate. Were you ever made to feel like, oh God, like I shouldn't be doing this, like this is wrong of me, and so that was a conflicting identity thing?
Not with pageantry, no.
Okay.
That relationship never really affected what I did with pageantry. Cool. Other things, yes. But no, that was always a pretty supported thing from everyone around me.
Good.
It was always a joke when I was younger, because I've always been very tall and skinny. My dad always said, like, you should go into modeling. And so, like, that was just, it was me deciding to actually do something like that was very much supported by everyone around me, which was nice.
So. Yeah. Well, and even like you just saying that other areas of your life, not pageantry maybe, were impacted by how other people made you feel with your identity. Like, so even relationships can do that to us, like romantic relationships, and the young ones that we learn about love with, those can be really great, but they're all learning lessons. And I just remember you sharing instances of your life through that evolution in that relationship of how like it was tough. You felt like you weren't allowed to do certain things that you felt held back from, and that's all a factor of who we are as a person and like can help us. So when you feel restricted even further to do things just like you were as a kid in school, and now other people in your life that you're choosing to be around are making you feel that way with certain elements of your life, like that can be really daunting too. So I didn't know if pageantry was one of those things, so I was just curious.
And I've never really explored it. It could have been an outlet for me too, to do something different and be a part of something that like not a lot of people knew about. None of the people I did pageantry with were part of my core friend group. My, ex relationship, none, like he didn't know any of them. And so it was almost nice for me to just be a part of something separated.
It's like a completely new world.
Yeah. So there could be a little bit of that behind it. I just never really thought about it.
Yeah. It's easy on the outsider's perspective, like hearing it and like putting all these pieces together. Like it's wild. But yeah, I mean, social relationships, whether platonic or romantic, like that can absolutely impact a lot of things that we choose or don't choose to explore. So pageantry's over. So now you're in your early 20s, like young 20s. So take us to that chapter of your life.
Yes. So I did go to college for a short period of time. I have my associate's degree in health sciences. I did not finish my nursing degree because I got involved in direct sales, where I worked for a multi-level marketing company. We all get sucked into those at some point, I feel like. And when I was 19, I think that was when I was 19. So I was still doing pageants at that time, but that's kind of like where my career started. And I thought, that I had everything figured out. I quit school. I quit my job. I, pursued that full time. And again, it was one of those things that like I look back on and I wish I could just like shake myself and be like, you wanted to be a nurse your entire life. Why did you stop? But I wasn't making decisions based off of like what I wanted to do. I was making decisions based off of what I was seeing everybody else do. And I wanted to be the people that I was choosing to spend my time with in that company. And so I did that for like about 2 years. And then I started to really like come into my own and realize like, this is not your future. I'm not going to talk poorly about the company by any means, but it just definitely was not for me. It did teach me a lot about like what fulfills me in life and what I'm good at, but was not for me. And so I stopped doing that. And then I started working at a apartment complex where I met you as a leasing agent. Great group of women that I was able to work with. I think that the 2 years that I worked there are probably the most like defining 2 years of my 20s, because I worked with a lot of women that were older than me, and they could see the struggles that I was going through, and they were never quiet about like wanting to help me and offering advice.
Good mentors.
And I always trusted them and felt very supported by them. And so, in those 2 years, I made some really, really big life decisions. I moved out of my parents' house, got my own apartment with my ex, found out that didn't want to be with him anymore. So, and they helped me a lot through that. Like, it was every day I came in and they would talk to me about how I could like fulfill my life and live my life without being tied down by this thing. And so broke up with him, started dating Ethan. And it was just like I said, the most pivotal 2 years of my early 20s. I just felt like I really came into my own. I moved into my own apartment, completely paid for by myself, which was a huge, huge accomplishment as a 21-year-old. And then, you know, my boss at the time knew like that being a leasing agent was not what I was meant to be for the rest of my life. And so she was very supportive when I decided to leave and get my first like corporate type of job. And so since July of 2020, I have worked at a marketing firm in downtown St. Louis. I've done a lot of different things there. Identity crisis. And that's where I'm at now. Married to Ethan. Like I said, we've got a few dogs, a nice house.
So that's all a freaking perfect start to some of the questions, like as I heard you, I just kind of randomly thought of. So I apologize. We're going to backtrack a little bit and then totally progress more. So I remember when we became friends and like getting to know each other, like you talked about the nursing thing and like, so can you elaborate on like why nursing was your initial thought, like what you're passionate about? Because that isn't a career. We are, in my opinion, we go through school as a kid, K through 12, because we are educated on how to be an adult in society and contribute, with AKA being a career, right? What can we contribute to society with our skill set? So that's a huge decision. So what was nursing, what did that mean to you? What was your original plan and goal with that?
So my love for being a nurse stemmed from when I was a kid. One of my closest cousins, I feel like we always have like cousins that we're like really, really close with. One of my closest cousins, he's somebody that like I grew up with. They lived in Chicago. I spent a lot of time with them. And he was diagnosed with leukemia at a super young age. And he almost died. And at that time, I think seeing like how much the medical professionals around him were able to help him, and like keep him comfortable while also like nursing him back to health, was when I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I am not just nursing, but like specifically working with oncology patients. And so I held on to that for years. I ended up getting accepted into like the accelerated program of nursing at the college that I went to. And I was full force, like I'm going to be a nurse. And I think I've always had a passion for being a fixer. And this is going to sound bad, I'm not somebody that typically goes out of my way to help people, but I also, if I see you in front of me like struggling, I'm like, I want to fix you, if that makes sense. And so I started nursing school and I got through like my general studies, and started my first round of clinicals. And at the same exact time, I started doing direct sales. And my identity was be a nursing student, get your degree, be a nurse. Like that's what you're supposed to do. But I was being pulled completely in a different direction of like, you know, what you get preached when you join an MLM, you know, financial freedom at a young age, being able to do what you want, the autonomy of making whatever choice you want to make, going wherever you want to go. And as a 19-year-old, I was like, that sounds awesome.
Right.
Free cars, like all of that jazz, got to travel. And so that, like the bright and shiny, really overtook what I felt like I was meant to do. And so I quit nursing school. And I've always been very stubborn and very much like, I know what I'm doing. And so I'm pretty sure my parents probably tried to tell me like, this is a dumb decision. And I don't think I listened to them, obviously. And so I quit. And then when I started dating Ethan, I really considered going back to nursing school, because I still felt like this is what I meant to do. But I never did it. Yeah. And here we are. Yep. 7 years later, still not a nurse.
Well, everything happens for a reason. I think that's, you know, a lot of people, especially like high school students about to enter that new chapter of their life with college or otherwise trades, or, you know, again, evolving into who they think they should be at that time for the world. And I remember you, when we first met, when you talked a lot about that journey for you with nursing school, I remember you specifically saying that you learned the value of money and you were like money hungry, and like that was a big, which a lot of people, I am too. Unfortunately, my profession will never satisfy that dream of. So yeah, my dream of being a teacher, I knew that was, you know, being money hungry was never a thing. Who doesn't want money? Who isn't money hungry, right? So like not knocking that aspect, but I was enamored by you at such a young age that you were to have those visions, because yes, you wanted to be a nurse and you switched gears, which is totally fine for someone like you who had an outline of what you wanted to do. Like you had proactive goals in place. Like a lot of people in the world will just give up on their alleged dream, right, that they had all their life, and think of something new that they want to do, but they have no idea where to start. So I was always very, you know, drawn to you with that. Like I just loved how young you were and you were able to do that. So I don't think there absolutely is nothing wrong with the fact that you switched gears, because, and you're still in that field.
Yeah.
Now, Mary Kay, when was that part? Was that in between kind of this?
So that's the direct sales. So that was that was like 19 to 21 years old is when I did that.
Mm-hmm. And I met you when you were like 21. I remember, because you'd been doing it, and because Shelby introduced me to you, and you guys were doing it together. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit, like Mary Kay, what that was like for you, and what identity you put into that.
Yeah. So Mary Kay is, I mean, everyone knows it as like, you know, the old makeup that maybe like your mom and grandma used to wear. But it's a direct sales company. It's a multi-level marketing company. Therefore, I don't like using the word pyramid scheme, but it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get preached like, you know, you can be financially free at this age. You can make great choices, blah, 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 blah. You just have to recruit X amount of people, sell X amount of product, get them underneath you. And then the more money they make, the more money they sell, the more money you make, blah, 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 blah. And so to me, I think this is where like I really defined myself as like a salesperson, because I was like, yeah, I can do that easy. Like I can convince people all day long that this is going to be like the best thing ever. And I did just that. And I got a lot of people to follow me in that journey. And I became a director of sales at Mary Kay, which really just means that I convinced 60 women that they needed to sell it underneath me.
Dang, that's so impressive. I suck at sales.
Yeah, but looking back on it, I just didn't know what the heck I was doing, you know? Like, it was just such a foreign thing for me. Like, I went into random people's homes that I had never met before to meet with them about this business opportunity, and I took trips so randomly to, like, all different types of places across the U.S. Like, I was 19. I had no business doing half of the stuff that I was doing. But I was also 19, making like $60,000 a year, which as a 19-year-old, you're like, dang, I'm doing pretty good for myself. Who wouldn't be
money hungry after experiencing that?
I got, you know, the 2 free cars. Oh my gosh. And so it was great while I did it, but then I started to really take a step back and realize, like, this is not what I want my life to look like, you know? Like, I never hung out with anybody that wasn't a part of Mary Kay, and it was almost felt like I wasn't allowed to, you know? And I never was like public about using products that weren't Mary Kay, because that's like frowned upon. And, you know, you always had to be put together, your hair done, your makeup done, your outfit nice, like just all of the things. And like, trust me, I don't mind like getting glammed up and stuff, but that's just not me, you know? Like, there are days where I would like to rot in bed all day and look like an absolute scrub and not be judged for it, you know? And it just, at the time, I do think that it has evolved a little bit, but at the time I felt very much like, it almost goes back to like how I felt in Catholic school. Like, I had to be one way, and I had to listen to everything that was being preached to us. And we would go to these big conventions and seminars, and they would talk about all of this like powerful, incredible stuff. And I was so moved. And then I would get home and share this information with like my, you know, relationship at the time, or my parents. And I remember them all just being enamored with like, this is bizarre, Sydney. Like, this is not, you should get out of here. And so I eventually started to believe them. And I remember the day that I decided to quit, I called I guess she was my director, mentor, whatever. And I always had a lot of respect for her. You know, she was also young, owned a home. Her husband and her were doing well. She drove the pink Cadillac. She was always wearing nice things. She shopped at nice stores, whatever. And she was great people. Like, I hung out with her a lot. I remember calling her just like sobbing because I had made the decision to step down and not do it anymore. And I felt so like guilty and like I was betraying her. And I think back at that and I'm like, why were you so upset? Like, you were making a decision for yourself, but at the time I didn't feel like that. I felt like I was letting someone down and giving up and quitting, if you will.
Yeah.
But the second I was able to do that and not be a part of that, I felt free, like just different. I could post what I wanted to post when I wanted to post it. I could wear what I wanted to wear when I wanted to wear it. I could be okay with buying cosmetics at Ulta and Sephora and not get shamed for it. But what came with that experience is my like wanting to always make a lot of money. Because I saw a lot of people make a lot of money, but also in that time I got myself into some really, really shitty, financial situations. You know, I learned what credit cards were, but I wasn't taught how to use them properly. So I got myself into some really bad debt. And to me, like, paying for my life and paying off debt was by far more important than doing something I loved with my life. And so that's where like the decision to not be a nurse kind of came from, is because like I respect nursing and I love nursing, and if I could be a nurse tomorrow, like I would. But at the time it just didn't align with the goals that I had, because I had to get myself out of certain situations. You know, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but like my parents weren't the wealthiest growing up. They always provided me with everything that I needed. You know, I never was without. But I want to be able to, I've always wanted to be able to provide the kids that I have with the life that I maybe didn't have. And maybe that's wrong of me, but like, I just, being able to be financially free and financially stable has by far always been the most important thing to me, even though I'm not smart with my money, like at all. By far, like not at all. I used to joke when I was younger, if I had $15 left in my bank account and I had a choice between buying a new shirt and filling up my gas tank, I would absolutely buy a new shirt. Like, I do think that's things that are going to boost my serotonin levels for like 5 minutes. But I've started to learn, you know, as I've grown, what's smart and what's not. But I've always had that lingering thought in the back of my mind of like, nothing's more important than being able to financially afford your life and pay for everything and eventually be free of debt. Right. And so I made a lot of decisions in the last, I would say 5-6 years career-wise, just based off of where I was at financially and not focusing on what's actually going to make me happy and make me feel good. It's just what's going to pay the bills and what's going to make sure that I'm debt-free.
Yeah, which I think is also commendable. I mean, there's a lot of adults that do not think that way either. You know, they, do things that make them happy. Like my job, I've had to have, 6 jobs since I started my career just to, like, afford the things that I want. Granted, I haven't ever lived a life where I had to live within my means, because I've always had extra jobs to have that extra cash to buy things that I want. But now at age 32, I'm finally at a point where I just quit both of my university jobs. Like, I need to learn. 'Tis time for me to adult and learn what it's like to live within my means. I have to learn to budget and be mentally and emotionally more stable with having that extra piece in my day. Like, I don't have to go grade 500 things. I don't have to go be at a meeting. I don't have to go teach. Like, I do my, 7 to 3. I can come home, take a nap, go play with Stella, but I can't go out to dinner. It's those things I'm ready to learn that. But my point in saying that as an example in comparison is, again, like, just maximizing on the fact that is commendable. Like, I wish I had learned that skill earlier on in life of the importance of budgeting, because I did the opposite. I've never budgeted because I've just always worked more, so I didn't have to, and then I could just whimsically go do what I wanted, you know, which I am grateful for, but it's it's crashed me. It's crashed and burned my mental health, emotional, all that, because I've just been so busy, and I never knew what that piece meant. So I think that's really commendable and a really good point. And I also wanted to mention, like, highlight what you said, bringing back the identity thing, like how you just joked and said that if I had $15 left, I'd buy a t-shirt over filling up my gas tank. That just brought me, as soon as you said that, not only a giggle because that's funny, but also truth to that of you being little Sydney, and you always wanted that shirt or whatever that you couldn't have when you were comparing yourself to the people that were around you at Catholic school. So all of your decisions 1,000,000% trail back to like your upbringing and the experiences you had. So to just tie that together, that was a perfect flow. And that makes the world of sense. It's wild, like when you think about those little nuggets that impact who you are today. So let's, where you're at today now, like your career, so marketing, and like you and I have talked about just other goals that you have, but now you're at a different stage of like, I want to be a mom. So where is your head at now with all this identity and newness for you?
So I would say, like, going back to your point of like you wish you had that skill. Yes, it's a nice skill. That it's not necessarily that I had a skill. It was just that I never made decisions based off of what's going to make me happy in the future. I only made decisions based off of what's going to provide me with the financial stability that I need. And even then it never did, because I was always so stupid with my money. And so don't think that I am ahead of you in that, because I'm definitely not. But I think that, you know, where I'm at right now, I would say the last year of my life, I have really, really come into what I want to do with my life. And part of like my identity crisis, if you will, is that I obsess over like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And like, who am I supposed to be? Where am I supposed to work? What am I supposed to do? And over the last year, I've really taken a step back and like reassured myself that I'm 26 years old and I have plenty of time to figure that out. But I think that's like the hardest thing for me. And the reason that, so I've been at this marketing group for not 5 years, almost 4 years. And I've done 6 different positions, which is crazy. Because I'm always looking for like the next best thing. And I will do a position because I think that like it's going to provide me with more financial stability, but then it doesn't provide me with the autonomy to decide what I want to do with my life or have work-life balance or flexibility. And so over the course of the last year, in December last year, decided to step into a pretty big role at work, to where I was a director of a division at our work. We had 3 directors in this division, so I wasn't the only one, but I had a team of people, probably about 50 people underneath me at all times. It was 5 mid-level managers, 5 like lower than mid-level managers, and then like 40 sales representatives, basically entry-level roles. And I thought, like, this is going to be so fulfilling for me. I'm going to be able to do what I love, because I do love leadership. Like, that's, I think, the most fulfilling part of my career thus far. I'm going to be able to develop people. I'm going to be able to work with managers and grow their skill set and, you know, sharpen their tools and stuff. But I made the decision to do that based off of the money that would come with it. And trust me, like, the money that came with it was great. You know, I would not take it back, but it's not what I was meant to do with my life. You know, like, I think that leadership is great and I'm good at it. However, what's more fulfilling to me is being able to have autonomy and go home and not worry about 50 people's well-being, and just focus on my husband and my dogs and, you know, the things that actually bring me happiness. And so over the course of the last year, I really realized that, like, my career is never what's going to make me happy. Mm-hmm. No matter what I do. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I think there's certain things that I could do that would bring me a lot of joy, but it's never going to be the thing that makes me feel like I've got it figured out. I'm never going to have an identity from what I do. Mm-hmm. And I really realized that this year. And so, like, I took a pretty big step back. I'm doing a training job now where I'm basically a school teacher for new hires. And it's great. You know, it's fulfilling. I'm able to develop people and train people, which is what I'm good at. But it's something that I don't have to stress about and I don't have to worry about, and I don't have to, you know, we've talked about this before, but, like, I'm an empathetic person. And so when I was working with someone as a director, if they were struggling with something outside of work, like, I took that on, and I just don't have to do that anymore. Like, I'm able to focus on what I want to do. And is this position my end all be all? No, not at all. I would be more than happy to find a job where I can work, you know, fully remote and make decisions and be at home, you know, just like, but it is something that is bringing me more joy and letting me focus on the more important things in life because, I mean, I do want to be a mom. I've told Ethan before, but, like, there's one thing I know that I was put on this earth to do, and it's to be a mom, and that's it. Like, I don't know, I don't know what else will bring me the amount of joy than, why am I getting
I am
teared
too.
up?
I feel it too.
Than being a mom. Like, that's the only thing. Mm-hmm. So I made decisions over the course of the last year to make that happen. Mm-hmm. You know, I've taken a step back from work. Ethan and I have focused really heavily on improving our financial state, and just, you know, being smart about what we're doing. And I've been vocal about that, you know, to people inside and outside of work, that, like, there's just nothing else that's going to make me feel more at ease and okay than when I have a baby.
That happens.
So
that gave me goosebumps. I just got, like, waves and waves of them the whole time you said that, because when you just, let's rewind a few moments, you said, like, I'll never have that thing, that fulfilling thing in my job. And I was going to ask you, what is that thing? Like, do you know what that thing is? Because I just did an episode, like a solo episode on career, like occupational health and, like, my journey. Like, I'm someone who has always known since age of 5, like, I'm going to be a teacher. Like, I want, like, I have had that thing and that fulfillment. Yes, I've had ups and downs with the career itself, but, like, I've never not known what I was called to do. And a lot of people in the world may be able to relate to that, but I know there's a hell of a lot of people that don't know what that feels like, and I can't relate to that. But that's my thing, and I can't even put words to how to describe what that thing is. But then you just answered the question I was going to ask you about, because the thing for you is being a mom. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Because that's beautiful. It really is. Like, you've gone your whole young life still. You're still so young and vibrant and have so much ahead of you, like you said. But it's like you went all this time chasing after things that you were thinking would fulfill you, which we all do. Like, that's part of growing, is learning and trying new things, which is, again, commendable. And then not getting that, and maybe feeling even empty at times, of, like, you're just lost, maybe not empty, but tapping into that hard feeling of just unsureness and the unknown, right?
Yep.
But you know what it is.
Yeah.
You still have a journey to get there, and you will, 100%. But it's like, that is the thing for you. What the hell are we Truly, like, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not something that I have really, like, thought of or given time or energy to until recently. But, like, you know, turning 26 for me, I was like, okay, dang, I'm, like, closer to 30 than I am to 20. So it's time to figure out, like, Sydney, what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah.
And I just, there's literally nothing that I could do with my life that would make me feel fulfilled or make me feel like I'm fulfilling a destiny other than being a mom. And so I'm making decisions to make that dream come true. And when that happens, like, I'm not going to allow or let my career or whatever the hell else, like, get in my way. So now it's just a waiting game.
Yeah. And still learning, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you are always, again, another commendable thing of who you are at such a young age is you've always, you've been very resourceful. Like, even in the short stint of time that I've known you, just past 5 years, like, you have shown me so much of how resourceful you are. And people who are in their young adult life don't know how to be resourceful today. They just expect things to drop in their laps and things to be handed to them, or just the first person they talk to have all the answers. And you have to dig. You have to put yourself, you have to have a fire in your ass or under your ass to, like, go after those things. And you've always been that way. And that led you exactly to the answer that you've really been soul searching for all of this time about who you are. And I think a lot of us, again, I mentioned this in my career episode the other day, that so many of us put our entire identity into our career. Like, because that's what education, like I said earlier, is meant to. It's developing you for your identity of what you're supposed to do, which is a career. And what if I lost my job tomorrow and I'm no longer a teacher? Like, that can't be my only identity, right? Like, we are so many different things. There just are other things that are more important that we want to put more energy of that, identity particularly into. So that whole evolution for you from childhood to this that we just talked about is so authentic and pure and relatable for so many people. And it's really refreshing to hear somebody talk about an identity that is not just their career. Like, it's just so foreign.
It's very foreign
to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, and again, at the young age that you are, like, I think it's just so beautiful. So, thank you for sharing all of that. That was so incredible and impactful and emotional. So my last couple questions for you, like, so let's think about listening population, right? So, like, middle school kids dealing with identity, high school, early college, and then now maybe even mid-20s. Like, what are some kind of closing thoughts, like maybe advice, or what would you say to even little Sydney? Just things that you would end on.
I would say that comparing yourself and doing things to try to be like those around you, no matter how hard you try and what you do and how much happiness it brings you for the short term, is, like, never going to be worth the heartache and, the issues that comes with just not being yourself and not owning who you are and the decisions that you make. And I know that might be, like, a little broad, but it's just, I think talking about, like, middle school, I've got 2 siblings that are 15, and so I see, like, what they're going through and the difference between who they were when they were just sweet young children that loved me so much to who they are now. And I'm like, but it's all because, like, they, God love them, are easily influenced by those around them. And, like, I have no idea, who the hell they're going to be or what they want to be, but some of the decisions I see them make, I'm like, this just isn't you, this isn't like you, but how can it not be when you've got so many people around you that are showing you that this is cool and fun and the thing to do. And so I think it's so cliche, but, like, when you're a kid and you feel uneasy about something or you feel unsure, you just, the feeling isn't good about something, listen to that and let that take over, and don't do something or act a certain way or be someone just because it's, like, the cool thing to do. Like, really own who you are. Because when you're 20, 25 years old, none of that is going to matter. 30, when you're an adult, it's not going to matter that you hung out with the cool kids in 6th grade. Like, that just doesn't matter. And so I think, just be yourself, own who you are, and be proud of it. And I will say, like, we're evolving as a society, and I think we are getting to a point where we're never going to be there fully, but we're talking about stuff like this. And so people are more okay with being themselves now and being different, way more so than when we were kids. So I hope it just continues in that direction. But the same would go for high school. Have fun, make good choices, but own who you are. And when you're deciding to go to college, go to a school that is going to serve you. Don't go to a school because all your friends are going to that school. And
don't research.
Yeah, don't go into a career field because the rest of your friends are. Again, none of that shit's going to matter anymore. And then same for, college students and young 20s. Just make smart, educated decisions. Don't let the sheep mentality, rule who you are as a person.
I like how you said, I'll pause. Just with kids latching on to things that make them feel accepted, how you said that way earlier, when you went to the public school for the first time and you just kind of latched onto the first group that made you feel, I think that's very normal, and we all do that. Who doesn't want to feel accepted, and who doesn't want to feel loved and appreciated and valued for who you are at your lowest and highest, right? That's the ultimate goal. But I love how you really explained that well, that point, throughout your entire story of you did latch onto that friend group, because at the time that's what you needed. And I think that's really important for kids to know, and young adults, even in college, that's a whole new chapter. In high school, you may have a good identity, definition of yourself at that time, but then you go to college and you are meeting so many other people and you might latch onto a different group. But I love how you specifically said, making informed, educated decisions that feel right to you. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall, but when we need to, right? We need to have those bad things happen to us, and the regret feelings to help develop those informed decisions better in the future. So I think that was tremendous advice of saying that, just be who you are unapologetically at the phase of life that you're in, and learn from that. What served you in that particular identity, what did you harm, and grow and grow and grow and continue to develop further, and give yourself grace, right? Give yourself grace for the eyeliner that you wore. We have to have a picture. Come on.
I don't.
We have to.
I don't. There's just no way.
You're really good at makeup. Can you recreate the look one time? That'd be amazing.
Just for you. Just for you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. You did
Thank
seriously.
you.
You did absolutely perfect.
Thank you.
As we conclude this illuminating journey into the realm of emotional health, I want to express my deepest gratitude to our special guest, Sydney, for generously sharing her transformative story with us. Her openness and candor have undoubtedly made a lasting impact, and I hope you, our listeners, found as much inspiration in her journey as I did. Now, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with 5 keys to level up your own well-being. Number 1, embrace your uniqueness. Your journey is uniquely yours, and embracing your authentic self is the first step towards emotional well-being. Embrace the quirks, the differences, and the things that make you, you. Number 2, cultivate self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Understand that growth is a process, and setbacks are a natural part of life. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend. Number 3, define your own path. Don't be afraid to forge your own path. Society may have expectations, but true fulfillment comes from pursuing what aligns with your passions and values. Define success on your terms. Number 4, nurture genuine connections. Surround yourself with people who uplift and support you. Genuine connections with others play a crucial role in emotional health development. Cultivate relationships that allow you to be your truest self. And number 5, prioritize self-care. Take intentional steps to care for your mental and emotional well-being. Whether it's through mindfulness practices, hobbies, or simply taking time for yourself, prioritizing self-care is an essential part of your routine. Remember, guys, your emotional health is an ongoing journey, and these keys are here to guide you as you continue to level up in your own life, particularly if you are someone or may know someone who struggles with self-identification and purpose issues. Thank you once again for being here. Your presence adds depth and meaning to this community. If you found value in today's exploration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, I'm eager to hear from you. Reach out via email or Instagram to share your thoughts, feedback, or to suggest topics that you'd love to explore together. Your input shapes the future episodes of the After Contract Hours podcast. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and keep evolving. Your well-being matters, and within it, you hold the extraordinary power to shape a life of purpose and fulfillment, which I am here by your side for every step of the way. See you next week.